Have you ever felt like a complete outsider? Like you don't belong where you are? If that's you, then you're going to want to hear this. Let's talk about one of the most incredible stories of identity crisis and divine purpose ever told. The story of Moses. Picture this. A baby, born into a people group facing genocide, is miraculously saved. But this is just the beginning of Moses' journey. By a twist of fate, or what we'd call divine intervention, this baby is found by none other than Pharaoh's daughter. She takes him in, names him Moses, and raises him as her own son. So, here's Moses, growing up in the lap of luxury, in the very palace of the man who ordered the death of all Hebrew baby boys. He receives the best education, wears the finest clothes, and enjoys all the privileges of an Egyptian prince. On the outside, he looks Egyptian, talks Egyptian, and lives like an Egyptian. But on the inside, there must have been a constant battle. He knew his roots. He knew he was a Hebrew. Imagine the internal conflict. Every day he'd see his own people, the Hebrews, suffering under the harsh reality of slavery, building the grand cities of Egypt with their blood, sweat, and tears. And he's living in the palace of their oppressor. He's part of the system that is crushing his people. How could he reconcile these two worlds? The prince of Egypt and the son of a slave. This wasn't just a matter of social status. It was a deep, soul-searching identity crisis. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 11, verses 24 to 26. By faith Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. This is a powerful moment. Moses makes a choice. He could have stayed comfortable. He could have ignored the suffering of his people and enjoyed his life of privilege. He could have reasoned that he couldn't change anything anyway. But something inside him, his faith and his conscience, wouldn't let him rest. He chose to identify with the oppressed, not the oppressor. One day, this internal conflict boils over. The book of Exodus chapter 2 tells us that Moses goes out and sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. In a moment of rage and perhaps a deep-seated sense of justice, he steps in. He looks around, sees no one, and he strikes the Egyptian, killing him and burying him in the sand. Moses thought his secret was safe, but the next day he sees two Hebrews fighting and tries to intervene. One of them retorts, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" The secret was out. His cover was blown. When Pharaoh hears about it, he wants Moses dead. So, the prince of Egypt becomes a fugitive. He flees from the only home he's ever known, trading the luxury of the palace for the desolation of the desert. He runs for his life, all his princely status gone in an instant. Now, let's pause and think about this. How many of us are living in our own kind of palace? Maybe it's a comfortable job, a certain social circle. You might feel a pull, a sense of injustice in the world around you, a calling to do something more, something meaningful. But the comfort, the security, the fear of losing what you have, holds you back. Moses' story tells us that true identity isn't found in our circumstances, our titles, or what other people call us. It's found in who God says we are, and the choices we make in alignment with that truth. Moses had to leave the palace to find himself. He had to be stripped of everything: his title, his wealth, his identity as a prince, to finally be ready for what God had in store for him. His time in the desert wasn't a punishment. It was a preparation. For 40 years he lived as a shepherd in Midian. He got married, had children, and lived a simple, quiet life. The prince became a shepherd. God was humbling him, teaching him patience and preparing him for the monumental task ahead. leading an entire nation out of slavery. God met him not in the splendor of the palace, but in the solitude of the desert, in a burning bush that was not consumed. This is where God reveals his plan. He says in Exodus chapter 3, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people the Israelites out of Egypt." Moses' reaction is so relatable. He's filled with self-doubt. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he asks. He feels inadequate, unqualified. He even points out his speech impediment. He's no longer the confident prince of Egypt. He's a humble shepherd, fully aware of his own limitations. And that's exactly where God wanted him to be. Because when we are weak, he is strong. God's message to Moses and to us is this: I will be with you. It's not about our ability, but his presence. It's not about our strength, but his power working through us. So, how does this ancient story apply to our lives today? First, it challenges us to examine our own identity. Are we finding our worth in our job titles, our bank accounts, our social media following, or in our identity as a child of God? Like Moses, we might need to refuse to be known by the world's labels to embrace the one that truly matters. Second, it calls us to choose. Moses chose mistreatment with God's people over the fleeting pleasures of sin. There will be times in our lives where we have to choose between the easy path and the right path. We have to choose between comfort and calling. What injustices do you see around you? What is God calling you to do about it? It might not be as dramatic as confronting a Pharaoh, but it could be standing up for a coworker, serving in your community, or speaking truth in a difficult situation. Third, embrace your desert seasons. Those times when you feel lost, stripped of everything, and alone, they are not wasted. God is at work, preparing you, shaping you, and drawing you closer to him. It's often in the wilderness, away from the noise of the palace, that we hear God's voice most clearly. Finally, trust that God will equip you for what he calls you to do. Moses felt completely unqualified, but God promised to be with him and give him the words to say. If you're feeling a nudge from God to step out in faith, don't let your insecurities hold you back. Your inadequacy is the perfect platform for God's power to be displayed. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12-9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." The story of Moses in the palace is a powerful reminder that our past doesn't define our future. Our circumstances don't determine our destiny, and our identity is ultimately found in God. He sees you, he knows your struggles, and he has a purpose for your life that is far greater than any comfort the world can offer. You might feel like an outsider, but in God's family, you belong. You have a purpose. You are called. What palace do you need to leave behind to embrace the calling God has for you? What choice are you facing today? I encourage you to spend some time thinking about that. Read the story for yourself in Exodus chapter 2 and Hebrews chapter 11. Let Moses' journey inspire you to step out in faith. Embrace your true identity and trust that God will be with you every step of the way. Thanks for watching. If this message resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content to help you grow in your faith. See you next time.